Thank you. So I'd like to start to open tonight's debate with a quote from Martin Niemöller. And Martin Niemöller says, quote, "First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me." End quote. Now, Martin Niemöller was a Nazi sympathizer, a Lutheran pastor and a Nazi sympathizer in Germany all the way up until Hitler rose to power, after which he became a vocal opponent of the Nazi movement, spending the majority of the rest of his life in Nazi prisons and in concentration camps. Now, the context for me providing this quote is just to show all of my trans brothers and sisters and people who wouldn't want to be put into either of those, that I will not let it get to a point where there is no one left to stand up for trans people. And I hope that many others will join me in that. So, should we affirm trans identities? Now, I'm understanding this to effectively be asking, should we consider transgender identities, people identifying as transgender, to be something that is genuine and legitimate? And in virtue of that, then should we affirm that and sort of roll with it in more colloquial terms? So I think that the two positions one could take on this matter, that yes, transgender identities are a genuine and a legitimate thing, and people really do feel this way. And no, that this isn't really a thing that people can feel. This isn't really something genuine or legitimate. Both can produce predictions about what we should expect to see in our society. I would think that the idea that transgender identities are not something genuine and are not something legitimate would lead us to see things along the lines of high rates of regret with respect to transitioning, high rates of detransitioning, higher rates of anxiety, suicide, depression, or substance abuse as a result of transitioning or as a result of identifying as trans, things of this nature. This is what I would expect to see, and I think most people can say they would expect to see if transgender people were not genuine in who they identified as and weren't legitimate in who they identified as. And I think that the other position, that they are legitimate, they are genuine in who they say they are, what we would expect to see is if we affirm them, we would expect to see that if they are suffering from any sorts of problems like anxiety or suicide or depression or anything like that, that these would go down. We would expect to see very low rates of regret with respect to transitioning or other forms of transgender healthcare. We would expect to see a lot of people moving away from that after having done it. Well, what does the data say? Because there is, in fact, quite a bit of data on this. Well, there was a study that was published in Plastic.
We've lost Leo.
Hold that thought.
Hold your thought there. You're frozen there, Leo. Do we have you? No, your audio cut out.
Am I back?
Sort of. You're sort of back. You cut out at there is a study.
Okay, I have. Okay. Oh, am I clear now? You good to continue?
I hear your audio. Your video's frozen, but I hear your audio.
Yeah, it's catching up.
And I can work with it.
I was gonna say it looks like our stream is working, so it might be on your end, Leo. So maybe if you got other things hooked up to the Wi-Fi,
okay.
Maybe disconnect that. But we're gonna carry on.
So this was a study published in Plastic and Reconstruction Surgery, and they examined the total of, this was a meta-analysis that they performed over a total of 27 studies. 27 studies pooled collectively 7,928 transgender patients who underwent any form of gender affirmation surgery. The pooled prevalence of regret, according to this study, was 1%. 30% of the people in the study underwent transmasculine procedures, and I believe it was 67% underwent transfeminine procedures. And the prevalence of regret amongst those patients, respectively, was less than 1% and 1%. Out of the 7,900, little over 7,900 patients, only 77 had any form of regret, with many of them, about a third of them, only having minor regret. So that's what one study shows us. And it seems to align more with the idea that these people are genuine and legitimate with respect to how they identify. A systematic literature review was done by Cornell University, and this study found it went over 51 papers published between, if I'm remembering correctly, I want to say it was 1996 to 2017 or 1997 to 2017. And they found a robust international consensus in the peer-reviewed literature that gender transition, which extends to include medical treatments like hormone therapy, improved the overall well-being of transgender individuals and showed that greater availability of not just medical care, but social support contributed to significantly better quality of life, which again seems to be something that aligns more with the idea that these people are genuine and legitimate with respect to how they identify, and that treating them that way improves the quality of their life. There was also a study that was published in the Stanford University School of Medicine, and it drew on data from one of the largest ever surveys, I think maybe the largest ever survey of transgender adults in the United States. This included more than 27,000 people, and this study found that transgender people who began hormone treatment in adolescence had fewer thoughts of suicide, were less likely to experience major mental health disorders, had fewer problems with substance abuse than those who started hormones later in their life. A whole host of things drastically improved for them if they started hormone treatment and other forms of transgender healthcare earlier in life. And it also documented better mental health among those who received hormones at any age, rather than those who desired but never received any treatment at all. So with respect to healthcare, it seems that what we see in the data, remember, I've cited 2 meta-analyses and the single largest study ever done in the United States on these people, on transgender individuals, seems to align with the idea that there is genuity when transgender people identify as transgender. And I think that that is in and of itself evidence that we should affirm their identities. But just to go further, many people may argue that, well, I mean, maybe that's true, but perhaps, them identifying as who they are, I don't know, leads to increases in crime of whatever sort. Well, the thing is that there's a study that's very, very often miscited from a Cecilia Jene, if I'm pronouncing that last name correctly, that shows that the only, not really even an increase that we see in transgender individuals is that transgender women have equal rates of crime as cisgender men, and that transgender men do not. This study also showed that as time went on and as social stigmatization went down and healthcare for trans people increased and got better, that it improved, that rates of violence and crime actually went down amongst transgender people, which fits very well within the accepted paradigm in sociology, that things like poverty, destitution, social stigmatization, otherization, a whole host of these issues are inextricably linked to violence and crime. So, and just to quote really quickly from the author of the study, Cecilia Jene, she said that the individual who is making claims about trans criminality, specifically rape likelihood, is misrepresenting the study findings. So I just wanted to show that, yes, this study is very, very frequently misrepresented, to the extent that the lead author of the study had to come out and say it. So it seems that what this shows is that as we improve social acceptance, as we improve healthcare and accessibility and availability of it to transgender individuals in affirming ways, the rates of violence and crime go down, rates of suicide, rates of depression, anxiety, gender dysphoria, substance abuse, all go down, and quality of life improves. This seems to align solidly with the idea that transgender individuals are legitimate, they are genuine in how they identify, and we should accept them for who they are. And I will end there.
All right. Thank you so much, Leo, for that opening your opening statement there. Just to remind everybody, the best way to get this content out there beyond liking and subscribing, that's all awesome, and ringing the bell, we appreciate all that, but the best way is to share these debates. So if you've got a contentious space on Facebook, Instagram, you're part of a debate group, share this out, because it doesn't get much juicier than what we're doing over here at Modern Day Debate. So with Leo's opening there, we're going to kick it over to Hake for his up to 10-minute opening. The floor is all yours, Hake.
Well, thank you, Ryan. Nice to talk with you again, and nice to meet you for the first time, Leo Philius. And shout out to Modern Day Debate and the chat. Nice to see you guys, and the podcast listeners who are listening on the podcast. I say no, we should not affirm so-called trans identities. We should not be into identity, period. You'll notice that the people most into so-called identity, whether it's racial identity, being a woman, being a so-called man, being this or that, those are the people who are like the nuttiest, the craziest, and the worst off in life. And that's what's happened to many of the people who have fallen into this identity of transgender. Even your race or your gender, like your real born gender, is not your identity. It shouldn't be something that you attach yourself with, something that you have a feeling that comes along with. You can do what you want, but I really believe we should not be into that. This is about selfishness. None of it is real. There is a false respect for it. And granted, I don't doubt that my opponent, Leo, really feels adamant about this. But the respect, regardless of your feeling, is false. And the delusion itself is a delusion. It's false. It's a false identity. It's based on thoughts and feelings. And as Jesus said in the Bible, take no thought for your life. And that's a wise statement, to take no thought for your life. Because the more you worry about your life, the more you think about your life. Even the liberal media has articles about overanalyzing your life and worrying too much, and versus breaking away and calming down and separating. Do not worry is another one of Jesus's statements, which I think everybody can agree with. Worry is bad for you. But today we're all in our heads about our selfish lives, and it's insane. Most of us, perhaps even all of us, are insane. And the transgenders are no exception, so-called transgenders. All of those 2SL, GBTQIA plus people, that's not who they are. It's not who anyone is. And so saying, oh, accept me for who I am, that's not who you are. It's what you fell into thinking that you are. And it's a trap. Living for self is, or the false idea of self is really what it is self-destructive. Self is your enemy. There's a great movie called Revolver by Guy Ritchie from like 2004, 2005, 06, that the theologian and streamer comedian Owen Benjamin cited the other day, and Jesse Lee Peterson, on whose network I stream, he also cited this movie. And it talks about how there's this voice in your head and you think it's you. And that's what the transgenders are going through. That's what all of us are going through. And you think it's you, and it misleads you. It tells you lies about what people are thinking. It tells you lies about yourself, causes you to commit suicide, causes you to commit homicide. It causes you to fall into all kinds of the wrong things. And you think it's you. It's a false identity. So I think that that's a great warning to all people, really. Anyone, all these allies, all these people who are allies to anti-racism or the gay agenda and all that stuff, they may not know it, but they are enemies of the people who they're propping up. They are like a spoiling, enabling mother. When you encourage somebody to be angry, to take offense, or when you take offense on their behalf, you're not doing them a favor. You're being a mama, if you will. When they pushed that same-sex marriage, for instance, years ago, 10 years ago or plus or minus, they were saying love is love, but that's not actual love. That is an emotional attachment, and that is not love, because that quickly turns into hate, you'll notice. And they don't love everybody with that same false love. You'll notice that they lash out. The people who are pushing the same-sex marriage, they lashed out against any Christian who would stand against it. So all their love went out the window. Love loves everybody the same, regardless of their delusion or their truth believing or whatever. You are decent to everybody. And we should be decent to the transgenders. They don't, the so-called transgenders. They are human beings. They're people. Treat them like that, and don't treat them like they're babies or like they're Alzheimer's patients, where you have to like take them around the block to make them finally recognize that they're home and play along with them. You don't necessarily have to do that. So I don't think that we should be affirming that stuff. So these trans allies, they're wolves in sheep's clothing. They don't love you. And your lover doesn't even love you. Your mother doesn't even love you. Most people don't have real love. They're possessed. Like I talked about with the devil in the mind. The devil is always with you in your mind. And a lot, it's interesting that all of this knowledge is available. Leophilius cited a bunch of interesting studies, but they lack wisdom. And it shows me that you can't really trust all these universities and institutions and researchers to have the wisdom to deal with the knowledge that they're gaining by interviewing all of these people. They're coming with a mindset and with a mama spirit where you don't really get wisdom from science, you get knowledge. And we have a whole lot of knowledge, but wisdom is as rare as ever. I think we should have respect for all people. We should treat all people right. Like we should treat the so-called transgenders like we treat anybody else. Nowadays, it seems like it's socially acceptable for them to be dressing up and transitioning, or whatever you want to call that stuff, into their thing. They're wearing their problem like a fat person is wearing his problem or her problem. But you still don't judge them. You just treat them with common decency. My fellow host on the JLP network, Joel Friday, host of Joel Friday TV, said that he feels that it's disrespectful to not call Bruce Kate. He feels it's disrespectful because Bruce said, "Call me Kate." So he's going to call him Kate. It would be disrespectful not to. And I can sympathize with that thing. I remember a famous viral moment when Ben Shapiro said such and such, sir, to that guy, Zoe Tur, or formerly Steve Tur, now Zoe Tur, I think. And I did notice, I'm like, was Ben Shapiro trying to rile him, get under his skin? Because that's not a loving way to act. Just because you're for truth doesn't mean that you're for love. Love means telling the truth, but with love. And that's what real truth is too. If you're not telling the truth with love, then you're not really about truth, because you're a devil fighting a devil. You're based on self. Angry people, you'll notice, try to make other people angry. And that's not the way to act. I think that blacks, for example, have no business being upset at the N-word, the so-called N-word. But knowing that society today is a mess like that, you act with wisdom, and you don't just spout off the N-word like crazy just because they shouldn't be mad about it. So same thing with the transgenders. You don't like purposely just try to make them angry or purposely show disrespect, saying, "Oh," with a harsh truth. But yet you let people, you tell them the truth, and then you let them be wrong. And just as they're wrong for forcing us to pretend to go along with them, so we would be wrong to force them to try to accept reality. And I think that I'll end there. We could talk about politics and laws and all that stuff, but I'm not as into that aspect of it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your introduction there, Hake. And just want to remind everybody that both of our guests are linked in the description, and they'll be linked in our podcasts as well. If you like what you're hearing from our speakers and want to hear more from them, definitely check out that link. There are links in the description there. And if you want to hear more from them right now, if you have a question for either of our speakers, we are doing a Q&A at the end of this. Just make sure that your questions are directed towards our topic and not attacks against our speakers. So with that there, we'll kick it over to Leo, and the floor is all yours, fellas, for... I think we discussed that we wanted to do 5-minute back and forths to start, so we'll just see how much there is.
I was just saying, just 5-minute rebuttals. I get a rebuttal, he gets a rebuttal, yep. 5 minutes, and then open discussion from there, if that's okay with Hake.
Yeah, that sounds fine.
That's good. All right, I'll
right
get
on.
out, and you guys can have the floor. 5 minutes for you.
Alrighty. So, Hake said that we shouldn't be into identity, but I guess I would need him to specify more what he means, because identity is a fundamental aspect of human society as well as science. I mean, I'm looking at the periodic table of the elements right now, which is a means of identifying the different elements and all of the various properties that they have. The identity is just a thing that identity, categorization, these are things that humans do. Shouldn't be into them. I don't understand what that means. He said that something about transgender people or the queer community are worse off. Well, I don't know if he was paying attention to my opening speech, but I cited, mind you, two meta-analyses, and the largest study ever done on transgender adults in the United States, all of which show that there are vast quality of life improvements that transgender people, queer people broadly, but specifically trans people, have experience with not just access to the proper care, but broad social acceptance. So I don't really know what you mean when you say they're worse off. Maybe if you worked harder to allow them and make them an open part of society like I did, they wouldn't be worse off. He said something about none of this is real, but trans people exist, so obviously they're real. This is delegitimization. It's effectively to say that this isn't real and people don't really feel this way is a form of erasure, and it's very, very dangerous. If you know your history, you know where it's gone before. He said that these people aren't who they say they are, but how would he know? He's not trans. He's never lived as a trans person, and I doubt he's probably had a lot of heart-to-heart discussions with trans people about who they are and things like that, like I have. I don't know what it's like to be trans either. All I know is what my transgender friends have told me, and I can only try to understand their experiences. But yes, these people are who they say they are, and all the data that I shared seems to lend a hell of a lot of credence to that. He mentioned suicide and stuff like that, but again, literally all of the data that I shared, two meta-analyses and the largest study done in the United States on trans people, show that rates go down quite drastically with not just access to the relevant medical care, but broad social acceptance and reductions in social stigmatization. So again, that seems to comport with what I'm defending here. He claims that allies are really enemies. I guess the only thing that I would say to this, more so to demonstrate the absurdity of making the claim, is I wonder if those who spoke up for Jews were really their enemy, or if those who spoke up for Black people were really their enemy. I just think I have to be quite frank here, just kind of a stupid thing to say. He said that, well, I shared all these studies, but they lack wisdom. I don't care. What they don't lack is theoretical virtue and empirical verisimilitude, and that's what I care about. It doesn't appear that you have that. You, at least thus far, haven't shared any of it. If you have some data, I would love to talk about that with you. He says that we should treat trans people with respect and everything, and that's great. We should. Obviously, they're human fucking beings. We shouldn't have to say that. We shouldn't have to have these debates. But then again, the political party that I would presume, I think quite reasonably so, that Hake supports, consistently passes laws directly attacking the open visibility of trans people in society. So I guess that's okay, but treat them with respect. And lastly, he just consistently reiterated, I think like 3 or 4 times, that this is a false identity, but he hasn't explained why or in virtue of what it's false or how he knows this.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Leo. We're going to kick it over for 5 minutes to Hake. Just to clarify, in live chat, super chats will be read at the end of the show. So, Hake, we'll kick it over to you.
Okay. First of all, I would agree. Yes. The people who are speaking up against this anti-Semitism stuff, and the people who are speaking against, on behalf of Blacks for this anti-racism stuff, they are enemies. They are wolves in sheep's clothing of the Jews and of the Blacks. They definitely are. They're spreading anger and resentment and encouraging those people to feel like victims and to be angry themselves. And people who feel like victims become perpetrators. And that's the worst thing for your life, to be angry. So yes, they are. And, to kiss up to the people, nobody really likes that. It's sort of a mama spirit thing. I wonder how old Leo Filius is to be talking about erasure, and this is going towards I guess he's implying that this is going that not being for the so-called transgenders coming out of the closet and being all into their delusion is going towards like a genocide or something like that, which is a liberal word that is used against decent people oftentimes. Worse off, by worse off, I mean that the people who are into that community, by and large, yeah, you can find that they get maybe, I suppose, I'm assuming you guys are telling me the truth, marginally better when you cater to them and everybody holds their hand and gives them all this so-called health care. I can go along with the idea that on a physical level they seem to improve, but that's only marginal compared to actual repentance, actually like not coming out of the closet with that. They should be going into the prayer closet and having decency rather than forcing everybody else to go along with it. By identity, I mean all of these things. I'm black, or I'm white, I'm a man, or I'm a woman. Even if you are a real man or a real woman, or I'm a transgender, or I'm a gay, this or that. All of those things are false. They're not who you are. Yeah, you identify elements, and you can say, oh, currently I'm going through this or that, but that's not who you are. And the more you attach yourself to those things, the more you're trapping yourself in those worlds. So all these studies are studying people who are trapped in this world. So of course you're not going to find much difference, but you're not comparing them to like normal people. By and large, they're still miles below the normal people. So, oh, and as far as data goes, I'm not interested. I mean, I am interested to hear what you're saying, and the data that you provide me. I assume by and large that you're being honest with what you've heard, but I'm not. That's not my interest. I can talk with you about what something means, what your results mean, but I'm not interested in data. I'm interested in basic living wisdom and common sense. People are individuals. They're not interested in data when it comes to their own personal lives. So the anecdote of the person's own life is more important than any amount of studies and data.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Hake. We're going to kick it into open discussion. And just as a question, just to kind of poke the conversation along, a lot of times when, and I see it in the live chat too, that these discussions are happening, there's a talk about gender and sex. So we're going to kick it over to Leo for the opening discussion and let both of our speakers talk about what they think that means. And then I think we can spring off of that. So over to you, fellas. Floor is all yours.
Yeah, get in that prayer closet. Get on your knees for Jesus. Anyway, so I think I'm trying to find a way to, because the way that I normally explain the distinction that I between sex and gender uses big scary words, and I don't want to use evil big scary philosopher words and scare people off. So but I would say that I think gender relates more. It's, I guess you could use the term internal. It's more about the actions. I guess you could say there's a normative component to gender where it's rooted in the actions or the behaviors that you engage in broadly in society that relate to how other people will recognize and address you. That's a part of identity. This is a very important thing actually in sociology. Sex really is just the gametes that you produce. And at the end of the day, I think really focusing on this distinction kind of obfuscates the discussion, because I think it's obvious that we're not talking about, and it doesn't matter what gametes you produce. We're talking about something significantly broader than that, that relates to how it is that people express themselves in society.
All
And
right.
I think that latter part is where the discussion really lies, is whether how they express themselves is legitimate, if it's genuine, when it comes from these people, and in virtue of those, whether we should affirm or disaffirm their identity.
All right, we'll give Hake some moments of thoughts on that, and then continue with our open discussion.
What's the question again?
In these discussions, there's a lot of talk about gender and sex. Do you draw a distinction, or what do those words mean to you in this discussion? I guess is what I think.
Okay, so like sex being male or female, gender being male or female, or man or woman or whatever. That's what you're asking.
Yeah, and then just go right into the open discussion from there. Just
Okay.
so that I think that'll give our live chat the context for this type of conversation that they might be looking for.
Okay. Yeah, I would say that they're pretty interchangeable. I understand a little bit of what the more intellectual people like Leo is talking about with the they're talking about how it's expressed in society, like a man doesn't wear a dress or stuff like that. I can understand that, but by and large, I would say they're interchangeable. And as far as the I did notice something. Just before Leo mentioned the difference between gender and sex, he mockingly said, "Yeah, get in that prayer closet, get on your knees for Jesus." And I do notice that there is a lack of understanding, a caricature made of Christians for their way of approaching these topics. In many cases, Christians don't even know people like this because they don't live in places where.
Do you think that's because the way
quiet.
that Christians approach it is bad?
Maybe so, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that Christians do make a caricature of themselves by not being a real light, a real example. So it's two fakes. There's the intellectual science liberal fakes, and then there's the Christian fakes, and they're both mocking each other over this, fighting over this issue. And it's definitely not productive for sure. But it's just something that I've noticed. What's that?
I said, of course it's not. But I mean, there's a whole ass political party literally writing laws against a specific demographic of people.
Right. Yeah, you brought
But
that
yeah,
up.
yeah.
I'm not against.
We're all missing the point, though.
Oh, what's the point? Go ahead.
Well, the point is that this affects people's lives, and that the kind of rhetoric that people like you push is dangerous, and it results in the continued otherization and stigmatization of whole ass groups of human beings, to the extent that a major political party in one of the world's most powerful nations writes laws and passes laws that openly attack their visibility, their existence in society. Now, I don't know about you, but I do know of instances where this has happened in the past, and it didn't fucking end well for 10 million human beings. I just don't want it to happen again.
I'm not for them. If I were the boss of the world, which I'm nowhere near being, I would tell them, no, you shouldn't be doing that. You know, this is public indecency. It's kind of like a obscenity, you know, to be out like that. But and so I think that's what the Republicans are trying to do with.
What do you mean
these,
out like that?
Out in trying like a man dressing up and acting like and doing the bodily medical.
Isn't this a free country? Men can't dress up and act as women.
I would.
I mean, Robin Williams did, and it's one of the most beloved American movies like ever. Like, what's wrong with men dressing up and acting like women?
Why is that wrong? Where's Robin Williams now?
Why does that matter to the point?
Because that's not something that I endorse, and it doesn't matter.
Okay, why? I'm asking you why.
Robin Williams was a miserable person.
That's not what I'm asking. Why is it wrong for a man to dress up as a woman? Which trans men and trans women aren't either women or men dressing. That's not how that works. They're
No,
trans men.
I
They're
added
trans
in
women.
like the
But I can just table that for now and
Right.
talk about a guy who is just a man who dresses up and acts like a woman, identifies as a man, but just likes to dress up and
He
act like a
shouldn't have done
woman.
that.
You're saying that would be wrong.
Yeah, it's kind of gross, vulgar.
Why?
On its face, it just is.
Yeah, but why?
Why what?
What is the grossness grounded in? What makes it gross or disgusting or wrong or whatever term you want to use?
To abandon the natural, normal masculinity of a man and turn him effeminate is
where? What do you mean natural masculinity? Men don't have to be masculine.
dress up.
Where
They ought to be.
was that
It's-
written on
it's-
like Mount Everest and humans discovered it and it said signed Mother Nature or something? What do you mean natural?
Common sense, you know what I mean by natural. Common sense says that it's what's natural and not, especially in a culture, in a society. Yeah.
So I guess then I would just ask, what do you mean by masculine?
You don't know what masculine is?
I'm asking you what you mean by masculine.
I think you know what I mean by masculine, dressing up like a man rather than dressing up like a woman.
So you're saying that attire plays into being masculine, how you dress.
No, attire plays into how masculinity expresses itself in the outer world, but it doesn't play into being masculine.
So you think masculinity is something over and mere expressive actions?
Right, it's deeper than that, obviously.
So what is it?
It's a man being a man as God made him.
I don't know, but when you say man, you're meaning masculine, right?
You're right.
So then you're just using the word not once but twice in the definition of the word. Like, so what do you mean by masculine? What sorts of concepts
you don't know what a man is?
get?
Do you not know what a man is?
I'm asking you what sorts of concepts you get. This isn't. That's the thing. I'm trying to get from you what concepts you have in mind when you talk about masculinity. I'm more than willing to talk about mine, but I want to hear from you first, since I'm the one asking the question.
A man being a man as God made him.
That's just saying masculinity is being masculine. That doesn't explain it. So you don't really know what it means.
As opposed to effeminate.
So you don't really know what it means to be masculine.
What
if I said
into putting it into a bunch of words?
Well, what if I said having a beard is masculine? And I'm not saying that any of these is exclusively
a woman having
masculine.
a beard would be mannish, yes.
And the thing is, I think that women that choose to have beards are most of the time, at least generally, trying to express some sense of masculinity, if not alongside other things too, because these things can be mixed with respect to how people express themselves. But what I'm trying to get at is things like having a beard, wearing jeans and t-shirts and stuff like that. Some people might say hunting, fishing, smoking meat, working on diesel engines. These are like some of the concept. And again, this is not meant to be taken as like all inclusive or all exclusive or anything like that. Women can do all of the things that I just listed and still be women. That's not the point. But some of the things I listed are typically associated with men. Would you not agree?
Yeah.
So when I ask you what you mean by masculinity, I want you to give me the kind of answer like what I just gave you. I gave you a list of concepts, of features about a person that tell me that they're masculine. I'm trying to get from you what you think those features are.
I'm not interested in spouting off a bunch of features, though. So I'm sorry, I don't.
So you're not here to have a discussion. Is that not why you're here?
Discussion about real stuff, but
masculinity isn't real?
Yeah, real stuff, but you want a bunch of characteristics, and I'm not God to tell you what to do.
But you said that being masculine comes from God, right?
Yeah.
So how do you know that? Did God not give you a set of characteristics that are typically associated, or that he would be considered natural to men? I don't know, like being a provider or something like that.
I suppose so. Yeah, this is something that you're into. I'm not really into this. aspect of it. Go
Well,
ahead.
so the point that I'm getting at here is that
Yeah.
it seems to me that masculinity as well as femininity are rooted in actions, behaviors, and forms of expression. There isn't anything
They're not rooted in that.
intrinsic to any human that makes them masculine or feminine. These are largely socioculturally influenced and informed. Do you really think that what it means to be a man today and the kinds of things that we typically associate with men today are the same as they were 1,000 years ago? Do you really think that?
No,
Okay,
it
why?
depends on the times. It depends on the
Okay,
times.
so you think that there is some fluidity to these
But
concepts?
you said rooted. You
So no,
used the wrong word.
would you affirm or deny that there is some fluidity to these concepts, like masculinity and femininity?
In terms of how you act out and how you dress and all that stuff out in the world, of course. But you said
So what would be
these things
informing?
you said masculinity is rooted in that stuff. Masculinity is not rooted in that stuff. Those are the branches of masculinity. Those are like the leaves, what you see from masculinity. It has nothing to do with the roots.
So then what would be the roots? What informs the changes in the actions or the behaviors? What is
Okay.
what is masculinity or femininity then? If not the actions, the behaviors that form the outward sociocultural expression.
Those are the visible signs of masculinity.
Yes, you've said that.
And so
I'm asking then.
So when a man does what tries to do what a woman does, or a woman tries to do what a man does, it's like a pretending.
That's so yeah, that's not answering the question. That's just saying that masculinity and femininity are different. But it's not telling me what they are. And
Yeah.
so the point that I'm getting at here is the reason you're struggling to tell me what they are is
I'm not
because
struggling to tell you. I
what you
care
are. You have not told me what they are.
But
And then
I don't have
when
to
I
tell
press
you
you
what they
to, you claim, well, I don't want to tell you what they are, but that's what we do. That's what like debates and stuff are for. So
But no, it's not.
I can't help but think that you fundamentally don't know what masculinity and femininity, excuse me, are
right
beyond those forms of expression, which then would seem that your position, you would be committed to my position, that these are fluid, broad sociocultural concepts. They're not rooted in something, that's like this natural or I mean, I think that forms of open social identity are, in a sense, intrinsic to human society, but no one specific form is intrinsic. So
no.
That's all I'm saying.
I get what you're saying. So I finally understand where you're coming from. This is like one of the communist tactics of muddying the waters so that we don't have a real solid definition. So we just throw it all away and then pretend that transgender is legitimate. What's that?
I said, I don't think that there are solid, like you would mention normal. What does it mean to be normal? Like, can you tell me what it means to be normal?
No, I cannot.
Why not? And I'm not trying to get you here, but why not?
No, I know, but it's because it's something that God defines. It's something that kind of naturally comes.
I would say it's because it doesn't really have like a working, like a univocal definition that applies in all times and all places. Normal doesn't. I mean, it's like, what would you do if I asked you to define cool? When somebody says, hey, that guy over there, he's pretty cool. What does that mean? There isn't a univocal definition. It's going to change. Yeah, it's the same thing for what it means. Like, so when. No, that's fine.
Okay.
Impact on children.
That's another thing that's kind of a hot
topic. A good one to bring up, actually.
That people have in this discussion. So I'm going to throw another monkey wrench in here. I was on mute, so I'm trying to keep my suggestions of keeping the conversation moving quiet here. But a hot topic as far as the conversation goes is where we are talking about cultural change. A big thing that usually gets brought up is impacts on children and schools and stuff like that. So I think that's another thing that we could move into for this discussion. So I'll kick it over to Hake.
Okay.
And we'll continue on.
Once again, I am all for like public indecency laws and for laws that lawfully suppressing obscenity. Because a lot of this stuff, again, is obscene, some of it more than others, of course, and a shame. I think we should get rid of public schools, honestly. I think we should get rid of anti-discrimination laws. We should get rid of the DOJ. We should defund the UN and all these people who are pushing this stuff. But again, I'm not the boss of the world. It's just a pipe dream, I suppose. We should encourage women not to worry their pretty little heads about politics, including even the mothers who are dealing with this. They're getting too frazzled on both sides about it. And it's cringy and it's crazy and it's not beneficial. Women getting involved in making these decisions, voting and all this stuff is part of the reason we're dealing with this stuff like this. Part of the reason we have guys like Leo who think the way he does. It's not good for the direction of the country. As far as children go, just be honest with them when it comes up and say, hey, these people are confused. Wish them well. Don't be evil towards them. And for those who are like, like mothers are doing this, or stepmothers are doing this to the children out from underneath the fathers, I say just sometimes you just have to let go and trust God. A lot of fathers are fighting in courts, and it's taking a toll on a lot of men. So just be honest, be a light in the world, because right now they're trying to suppress anybody they're going hard after the Christians, after the whites, after the men, and after the children, and after the unborn babies. So, and anybody who's an independent thinker, really. So just be a light, be wise, and don't fall into anger or worry. And a lot of people are overly worried about kids, and all these people who are anti-pedophiles, they get crazy over it. And that's not good for them or for the kids that they think that they're protecting. So I say just stay cool, cool-headed. Stay in prayer.
Yeah, I would agree with Hake that we should be honest with children. We should tell them that transhumans are humans, that these people exist, that there's nothing wrong with them, and that you should treat them like you would like a Jewish person or a Black person or a Muslim, one of your Muslim friends that you have in school, like I had, or one of your African friends that you had at 6 years old in kindergarten, like I had, or one of your Thai friends, like I had, or your Bosnian friend, because I actually grew up at least for part of my life, in a relatively diverse area. And trans people are just human beings trying to live their lives. There's somebody I know who's trans, who recently became a doctor. Congratulations to him. Because these are people that just want to, have careers and live their lives and be normal human beings like everybody else. And we should be honest with children about that. And we should be honest if children are feeling this way about being capable of expressing the way that they're feeling with their parents, with any other medical professionals that would be requisite to that scenario. And when the appropriate ages come for things like hormone therapy, puberty blockers, and eventually gender affirmation surgery, then these people should be allowed to pursue it. But yeah, I think that we definitely need to be honest with our children. The only question I would have for Hake is, he said that like these people are confused. I don't know what he means. Confused about what?
Confused about confused into thinking that there's something that they're not, into feeling like there's something that they're not.
So how do you know what they are or what they aren't?
It's not for me to say, but I don't know. I'm not.
So then why are you saying it? You're saying it right now. You're saying that they think there's something that they're not, which means you must know what they are to also know what they're not, and to know that they're not the thing that they are.
No, you can know what you're not without knowing what you are. And you can know what others are not without knowing what they are or who they are.
So do you know who these people are or not?
Often by process of elimination, you arrive at the truth. So you don't have to know who you are or what you are. Most people go through life not knowing who they are or what they are.
That doesn't mean everybody does. And that doesn't mean that they question certain facets of who they are. There might be somebody who, questions who they are, but is a Christian and is firm in Christian belief. They're not questioning that, are they?
Right. By and large, they're not. But
yeah. So what about somebody who's a trans man and is a trans man and has been for 13, 14 years? They're just confused though, right?
He's caught up in an idea. Yeah, that's not who.
What
he
idea?
is. It's an idea of what he is as a so-called trans.
Okay. Huh? I don't understand what that's supposed to mean.
When you're caught up into an idea, oh, I'm trans. You're caught up
This
in
isn't
an
an
idea,
idea,
of
though.
what you are. It's not an idea. Of course, it's
No.
an idea.
No, it's not.
Trans is not an idea.
No, trans people exist.
People exist, and then trans idea,
people, and some of them are
idea
trans.
people,
Yes.
They think that they're trans. Yeah, and people think
No,
along
they are.
with them
They
that
are trans. They are trans.
Whatever that is. It's something that you. It's something that you.
A trans person is somebody
that Satan
who's
made up and you
who's
believe
born who's born with a body that is typically associated with a particular set of broader sociocultural characteristics, but that they deviate from those. That's a trans person. Those kinds of people do exist in society and have for thousands of years, as is documented by the Egyptians, the Romans, the Greeks, and the Hindus.
Confusion has always been with us. Yeah, everybody has their issues, and some people are more challenging than others.
Yeah, like religion.
Yeah, that too, definitely.
Yeah, but not transness.
Oh, that's not confusion?
No.
Transness is not confusion.
No.
I beg to differ. I think it's one of many different confusions.
In virtue of what are these people confused?
They're confused into thinking that this is something that they should be going with.
How do you know that?
That's an interesting question.
How do you know what trans people feel and how they identify? This is what I don't understand about this.
Because
you're not trans. Are you trans? No. Are you trans?
No.
So you haven't. You do not know what it feels like to be trans.
I know what it feels like to be human, and they're no different from me.
I didn't ask you if you knew what it felt like to be human, though, did I? I asked you if you knew what it felt like to be trans. Do you?
Right. No, I don't know what it feels like to be
so-called trans. Then why are you trying to say what these people do and don't feel?
Because I know I'm not saying what they do and don't feel. I'm saying that they're confused.
But you are. You're saying they're confused.
Yeah.
About the way that they feel.
Oh, I'm not saying that they feel. I'm not saying that they feel confused. I'm saying that they are confused. I don't know how they feel.
I'm trying to figure out what are you basing this idea that they're confused on?
Okay, because
I'm not understanding.
Because say on a Saturday, I feel like going out to the beach. Right away, I feel like going out to the beach. Someday I may do it. And some days I may be like, hey, let me calm down. Let me pause and just go about my life as life leads me rather than following my whims and my desires and my feelings.
Doesn't that presume that life can't lead people to being trans? It seems like you're implicitly assuming the invalidity of this before demonstrating it.
Let me finish. When I follow that thing and I follow that temptation, my life goes worse than were I to just calm down and just go with where life takes me rather than what the desires and thoughts and feelings take me. Living for self, that's an identity. That's a false identity. This self, this mind, the talking in your head, that's not you. That's not them. So because I know a little bit myself, I can relate to the transgender. I can relate to the murderer or the thief or whatever.
How do you relate to transgender people?
Because I'm a human being who has ideas that drive.
So you know. Crazy. So do you know what it's like to be black because you're a human being?
I know what it's like to be a human being, just like
Do you know what it's like to live in China because you're a human being?
No. Nope.
So then being a human being does not entitle you to experiences you've never had.
I know, but I can relate to the believing an idea, because that's all it really is.
Well, it's not, in the data that I showed demonstrates that it's not. It also demonstrates
the mind
the claim
is very
that you made. I can't directly remember what it was, but that was false too.
What did I say?
I think it was about that their lives get worse when people pursue this, but that's not true because
I never said that.
For people, well, yeah, you did. You said that like
I said their lives
are worse. People who pursue this idea, their lives get worse. That rather than like slowing down and trying to figure things out. It seemed like what you were trying to imply is if people sort of jump into this I'm trans thing, rather than just like taking a step back and going with the flow and stuff like that, that they tend to end up worse off. Is that what you were saying? Maybe I'm misunderstanding. I might be.
Right. Yeah, because you were studying all the people who believe that they're trans. You didn't study any of the people who feel that way but didn't believe it.
I don't know what that means to say to people to feel that way but don't believe it. That
They don't
I mean, there
listen to
might
the
be
thoughts and
people who
feelings.
believe it but deny that belief. But I don't know what it would be, what it
Exactly.
would mean. Hey, for me to say that I feel hungry, but I don't believe that I'm hungry. The
Oftentimes
feeling that I am
hunger
hungry
lies to you.
is the
That's a great
belief that I am hungry. Like
that's
the
a great
belief
example.
is.
That's a
So
perfect example. A lot of times people feel like they're hungry or think that they're hungry and they eat, and that is what eventually kills them.
Okay, I don't know what that has to do with anything.
You're talking about feeling
At.
hungry and feelings and all and thinking.
No, I was
and all that
talking
stuff.
about what I was responding to what you said, where people feel a way, but they don't believe that people feel like they're X, but they don't believe that they're X. That's
Right.
what you said.
Yeah.
And replace X obviously with transgender people.
Yeah.
But I used hunger to show how that's kind of a ridiculous notion, because if I feel hungry, I feel that in virtue of having the belief that I'm hungry. The belief that I'm hungry is intrinsically attached to the feeling of being hungry. Just like I feel the light from my lamp hitting my eyes is intrinsically attached to my belief that there is light hitting my eyes is intrinsically attached to the feeling of it. I don't know how you would disconnect those.
No, feeling is not necessarily believing, and thinking is not necessarily.
That's
believing.
not what I was saying, and I don't
you
think
said
that's what you were saying either.
Feeling hungry is not the same thing as being hungry. Needing,
which is not the same thing as saying feelings is the same thing as beliefs. Well, I don't know how rigorous the word feelings is in
Right.
epistemology, this is somewhat tangential, but
you're fine. It's interesting.
This notion of like seemings is something that might be used. Like instead of saying I'm feeling hungry, you might say I seem hungry.
Mm-hmm.
But then the thing is, within that framework, we can attach beliefs to seeming. So like most epistemologists are not going to detach like feelings about yourself, those sort of intentional states, from the propositional content, the beliefs that are going to ride along with them.
Yeah.
But this isn't a discussion about epistemology. So
as JLP has said, J.C. Lee Peterson, who's counseled a lot of people in this world, there is no feeling to being a man or to being a woman. It just is. Unlike with the transgenders, the transgenders feel like there's something other than what they are. It's a confusion.
There is no feeling. So you don't feel like a man?
No.
I do.
You do? I can
tell.
I'm
sitting here, I'm drinking Budweiser, tangentially related to the gayest beer on the planet, apparently. Hell yeah.
But that's not, see, that's silly. How old are you, if you don't mind my asking?
27.
Okay, all right. Understandable. But that, man, that's not, no, that's, you feel like a, I'm not surprised
I feel like a man.
Feel like a man.
I would also say that I am a man.
I bet you felt so righteous when you quoted that guy, the anti-Nazi, former Nazi sympathizer guy from history about, they were going after the whites, but I was not white, so I did not speak up for the whites. Well, they were going after the Christians, but I was not a Christian, so I didn't speak up for the Christians. They were going after the men, but I was not a man, even though I feel like a man. But I did not speak up for the men. They went after the unborn children, but I was not an unborn child.
I'm not gonna lie, you got a pretty good sense of humor. I'm not gonna lie, I'll give you that one.
But anyway, I'm
not gonna be honest. What I felt,
you felt righteous in that, right?
No, I would say I was just saying, man, I really hope the point here isn't lost. I really hope that this is like a good point, like a good way to like sound off my opening speech. That's what was going through my head. I didn't feel righteous.
Okay. You just performed righteous. You're like a performer. Which I'm not taking.
Well, no, I just like debates.
Nice. That's cool. You have a completely different view of what decency and wisdom is, I guess. Wisdom.
Well, I'm just not I guess those just aren't words I would use in the context of this discussion.
Well, wisdom.
It seems to me that what we have is an unprecedented wave of bigotry in the form of a bunch of rhetoric, as well as legislation, not just being proposed, but being actively passed, like in Missouri, which says that autistic adults cannot get trans-affirming care because they're autistic. So they're not just targeting trans people, they're targeting autistic trans people as well.
They're saying they can't make
in the form of rhetoric and legislation, we're seeing an unprecedented wave of bigotry against trans people in the United States and the United Kingdom, other areas of primarily the Western world, but those two nations are the big one. And it's disturbing because I know what happens, because I can look back in history when people do this. And this is coming from conservatives and traditionalists, unequivocally, just like it did with the gays in the 70s and the 80s, just like it did with the blacks in the 50s and the 60s, women in the 20s. Who was it that opposed all of the social movements that fought for their right to exist in society, and who are currently doing it today with trans people?
But you're using
conservatives, traditionalists, right, because they're dangerous, and the things that they believe are dangerous, and that is why they don't want to affirm trans people.
Who are you
conservatives and traditionalists? Okay. Well, their ideology is dangerous. I can't say that they are dangerous.
Okay. But you're saying it wrong. You're saying, oh, we think women and blacks and all, and the people who think that they're transgender and all that stuff cannot exist in society and be visible in society. That. Well, you think that we're against them something exists in society.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
That's not true.
It is an undeniable fact of history that conservatives it has largely been conservatives and traditionalists opposed to further social rights for trans people, gay people, black people, Jewish people, and women. This is not a thought. This is not me saying it. This is a historical fact. And we are seeing it extended into the modern age.
What's a social
right? The right for people to be able to exist under the same, with the same level of freedom, positive freedom, that other groups get, where it is an equitable distribution, and you could say equal distribution rather, of the privileges, the abilities, the opportunities that we afford the people in our societies broadly, and ways in which we structure our societies with respect to our goals for how we want people to be treated. That's what I'm talking about.
I don't totally follow, but I know what the historical things you're talking about, like women voting and getting all into the different workforces and stuff, like in special treatment for blacks and these anti-discrimination laws.
What do you mean special treatment? You even said that about trans people, that like we're know catering to them. What do you mean by that?
Catering to so-called trans people is us, like these ridiculous bathrooms where they say all genders and it has these weird symbols. Catering to them by pretend. I'm getting a little bit of feedback in my ear. By going along, by forcing everybody to go along with them and changing their birth certificate and all that stuff. All of this
how are people being forced to go along with it? I don't understand that.
Oh, you're not aware of, for example, with the so-called same-sex marriage, people are being forced to pretend like that's a real, actual marriage, when a marriage is between a man and a woman.
They're not. You can pretend it's not a real marriage. It's just that it is legally. But you can pretend that it's
different
not.
From what it actually is, because it's not.
Yeah, but nobody cares. Nobody cares what you think a marriage is. People care about being legally married.
If they wouldn't. If they didn't care what I thought, then they wouldn't turn. Well, I don't think that they care what I think. But if they didn't care what people thought, then they wouldn't form a lynch mob against like a cake maker or a flower maker or a woman who won't sign their so-called license. So
people in dereliction of their public duties. Yeah, that's wrong.
Well, I beg to differ that's what that is, but you can call it that, of course.
Wait, so should it be okay I already can presume what your answer is, unfortunately, but do you think that private businesses should be able to turn people away just because they're black or Jewish
Yes.
Why? So you
Because
believe that discrimination should be legally permissible?
Yeah, of course. It's a basic
Why?
right of all people. It's a basic right of all
But
people.
it infringes on the right of other people to
No, it
be able
doesn't.
to go places. Yeah, it does. So
No,
you're
it
saying
doesn't.
that when white people go into a really cool like new amusement park, but nobody else who's not white can go in, that's freedom? When only one group gets to do a thing and nobody else does, you're telling me that's freedom? See, this is the thing. It's not freedom.
Yes,
And
it is.
you
It's
don't
the
believe in
freedom.
freedom.
That's
I
yes, it
do.
is.
Because freedom means that everybody gets to do the same things, not you get to prevent everybody from doing the things that you do. That is not freedom.
I'm
That
not
is
preventing anybody from doing anything. I don't own
impingement of
any
freedom.
business.
Yeah, you are.
No, I'm
Saying
not.
that people should be allowed to pick and choose
Saying
who they
talking is
serve
not.
publicly
Yeah.
is that exactly. Yeah.
It's a basic right. Why would you want to impose on somebody who's built their business and wants to discriminate however they want to discriminate? Why would you even want to go to a place like
Because
that?
it's good for society to make sure that businesses can't do that.
No, it's not. It's not good for society. It's spreading.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
spreading
That's why
suspicion.
society got better and the economy grew and continues to grow as we increase and improve immigration. The economy grew when we, passed the Civil Rights Act. The economy grew after the women's suffrage movement because they were actually able to get jobs and all that stuff. Like, yeah, so
Ill-gotten
this
gain.
stuff is
Ill-gotten
good for
gain.
the economy.
Look at how miserable people are when with all their money. Teens are more mentally ill than ever. The family is a mess, and people are crying racism for no reason against whites willy-nilly and cops like crazy. You can make all the claims that you like, but the division and the anger in the country, you can say, oh, they're making more money. It's not all about money. It's about
I agree.
it's about a country, and we don't really have a country now, so it's a mess.
I don't know what that means, but I just because I believe, Hake, you said you only had till 9:45.
Yeah, have about 40 more minutes.
Okay. Well, what do we have for super chats and questions? Do we have a shit pile, or are we actually doing pretty good?
Well, we got quite a few that we could launch pad discussions off of to close out.
Okay.
So if you want, we can go into the Q&A now and keep kind of like a loose discussion going as we wind down. Okay.
Sure.
I'm good with that. Could me and Hake have just like a minute or two for just some final statements before we transition?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pun
sure.
intended.
However,
No, that's fine. I was gonna say we'll do up to 3 minutes, whatever you guys take there. So we'll kick it over to you, Leo, to kind of give out your thoughts on the discussion there before we go into Q&A, and then we'll kick it over to Hake.
Sounds good. So I just want to say I rather reiterate. I shared 2 published peer-reviewed meta-analyses, one by one of the most prestigious institutions on the planet, Cornell University, and the largest study ever done on transgender adults in the U.S., all of which showed that gender-affirming care drastically reduces gender dysphoria, anxiety, depression, suicide, substance abuse, as does social acceptance and increasing social acceptance. And these all seem to align thoroughly, much more. So, I mean, I could even lay it out with Bayesian calculus if I needed to. The probability that we would see drastic reductions in substance abuse, depression, anxiety, all that stuff that I mentioned, and improvements in the quality of life with gender affirming care and social acceptance is much more probable, given that these people are genuine and legitimate about who they say they are, than if they weren't. So I think that the data clearly aligns with the position that I've been defending. And we didn't really see literally any data from Hake, just a lot of hand waving and rhetoric about how, well, studies lack wisdom. Again, I don't care. Nobody does. I understand you're not a data-driven individual. I am. That's how humans got to where we are now, because we look at the data and we make decisions. We understand reality may not always comport what we think and what our intuitions tell us. And that's why we have methods like science and like peer review. And according to those methodologies applied in accurate and meaningful and consistent ways, the data concludes that accepting these people for who they are and providing them the care that they need improves their lives. And I don't know about hate. It doesn't sound like it, but I believe in improving people's lives. I want people's lives to be better. And that includes trans people. How much time do I have left? There was just a couple more things I wanted to say, but I don't want to.
You're fine for me.
Yeah,
because
if
we got
James
35
is all
minutes.
good with it, then if you want to wrap up in just one more minute.
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to test everybody's analogical thinking quickly to really kind of frame this. So I hope you can think your analogical thinking is up to par. No offense to anybody, but I often say that I am, and it's not just me, but I am the Lorax, and I speak for the trees. And right now, they're sitting at the edge of the forest. They're sharpening their axes, and they're filling their chainsaws with fuel. And we're watching them do it. And some people, most people are ignoring it, but not me. And with every draw of the whetstone across that blade, with every drop of fuel that falls into that tank, I will get louder about what is happening, because I will not let them clear cut the forest like they tried to do 90 something odd years ago. Because I am the Lorax, and I speak for the trees.
All right, excellent. Yeah, there's a metaphor for everybody. I think to close out Leo's main arguments for this evening. But as somebody who gets by using a chainsaw, I mean, Leo, you coming at me, man? Like, what's happening here? Yeah. Anyways,
as long as you don't cut down the trees.
Just the ones that grow where people don't want them. Anyways, I'm gonna go over to Hake now. I'm so sorry. I don't want to distract from your point. I just thought that'd be funny. So Hake, we're gonna kick it over to you for. We'll give you up to 4 minutes there to close out your thoughts.
All right, thank you. This reminds me a little bit of my modern day debate con appearance a year or so ago in Dallas, I believe it was. I talked with Destiny, Stephen Bonnell, and T-Jump and Amy Newman, who's one of your guest moderators on Modern Day Debate. And they told me, just like Leophilius told me, that the people who are thinking that they're so-called transgender, their sense of well-being is improved by so-called transitioning. Treating symptoms, I say, which is what that is. Treating the surface level symptoms. Scientists are shallow. It's very short-sighted, and very few ever try another way, the other way, the real way, including even the Christians. Like I said, they have a caricature of what Christians do and are about, and partly it's because Christians are a caricature of real life rather than living real life. So it's two fakes pointing at each other's fakeness, and blind leading the blind on many sides. I do say stay in the closet, the prayer closet, or go back into it. Stop judging yourself and others. And I say that for all people. Destiny, Stephen Bonnell, once I heard him make a deep point. Incidentally, he's sort of a liberal. That people try to define themselves based on what they get into, or just things that they do, and he says that that's a mistake, and I totally agree. Just live. Suicide happens because people believe their thoughts and get into their thoughts and feelings and emotions, and listen to the voices in their head, thinking that it's them. It's not them. It's Satan possessed. Most people are possessed. All people probably, really. I hear many times the people who try to commit suicide regret it the moment they jump off the bridge, for example. JLP interviewed a guy who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and regretted it, rolled up into a ball, and somehow he survived, broke a bunch of bones. We have more scientific knowledge and advanced medication than any time in recent history, I think. and more mentally ill teens and mentally ill so-called women. I think mental illness is the wrong word for it. It's a spiritual death that people are living in. And there's anger and hatred between men and women, between the races, between inside of so-called families. I say so-called because most families are not families. It's not a man and woman married with their children. It's broken to begin with before they even start. So maybe following the science isn't such a wise thing after all, but an empty slogan. The science yields knowledge, and again, not wisdom. And you heard Leo Filius say he doesn't care about wisdom with regard to this topic, but I think this topic requires wisdom to, you can look at all the data, you can look at all the studies. These are done by a bunch of liberals. And who or why is this thing so promoted and encouraged that it's become such a common thing that people have fallen into? So modern science is amazing, but today it's helping people live longer, and I'm not for helping people. I'm for people helping themselves. Make your own life better.
Excellent. And just a reminder to everybody that both of our guests are linked in the description. We're going to kick right into our Q&A.
Before we do that, can I clarify my analogy just really 15 seconds? I think the reason I chose that analogy got lost on some people in the chat.
Yep, 15 seconds.
And it's another quote from the book. If you know the book from Dr. Seuss, this quote should put into context why I chose the Lorax as the analogy. Unless someone like you cares a whole lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not.
All right. Let's kick it over into our Q&A, and we'll continue right along there. And thank you so much for both of our speakers for being here this evening and having this discussion. It's a hot topic, and some people don't want to touch it with a 20-foot pole. So Leo Filius and James Hake, wonderful to have you here this evening to talk about this. So Corey Clark, one of our members for the last month here, says for $5, Leo, if I say I'm a 200-year-old vampire, they'll throw me. If I say I'm a 200-year-old vampire, they'll throw me in the psych ward for mental illness. How is it different saying you're female when it doesn't match reality?
Well, that's because it does match reality, because trans people are a part of reality and 200-year-old vampires are not. That's the thing. One is real, one is not. One has existed for thousands of years in society, one has not. Pulling out these arguments from absurdity, where one absurdifies the position in an attempt to argue against it rather than actually arguing against it, it just shows that there isn't really much of an argument to be made. So I guess I'll leave it there.
Awesome.
I mean, I agree. It's kind of not. There isn't much of an argument. Men are men, women are women, and then the trans people are into
men are men and
else.
Trans women are women.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Well, we can continue on. Some people in the live chat, I think, Cheryl, your chat's disappearing quickly on me, though. They say vampires are real. So, maybe that's a debate to have in the future. I'm not sure if there are people that believe that vampires are real, but if you do, definitely send us a message.
If you do, this channel will host you. That's for sure.
Maybe. I was going to say, I'm not sure about that. We'll find out. So, spoiler alert, $5. Thanks for being here again. Leo Filius began by quoting Martin Niemöller. I'm going to butcher that. Does Leo speak out against the growing anti-white sentiment we see in our society and institutions?
No, I don't speak out against non-existent things. Oh, Lord. Are you serious?
Yep.
No, I'm saying you don't see that.
Yeah, no. Over the last 600 years, the world was built by white Western European men for white Western European men. But their ancestors are being targeted in places where they still hold most of the power. Most wealthy people are white people. White people have on average, or rather, black people have on average 10% of the wealth of white people in the United States. There's been studies that have shown that juries still target black people with harsher crimes than white people, with harsher penalties than white people for black people, even when it's similar people with no criminal record who did the same exact crime. They have shown that people with black sounding names or effectively non-white sounding names don't get callbacks and don't get interviews as often when they submit job applications, but it's white men who are being targeted. Yes, that's what all of the data shows us. But again, hate doesn't care about data, because when it's against almost every aspect of your worldview, why would you?
No, those things are not against any aspect of my worldview. Those things, a lot of them make sense. A lot of them are quite. You're giving cherry picked things. It sounds like you're bringing up some supposed wrongs to justify other wrongs against whites. It sounds like you're closing your eyes to the hatred and malice towards whites who, by and large, yeah, they built the Western world and made life better for everybody, including blacks and Indians and everybody else, women and everything.
That's not true.
Yes, it is. They've never had it so good than here. Then and now because they're being weak and catering and false guilt, they're spoiling the people, and they're getting because they're weak, they're getting hated. They're inviting hatred.
Okay.
Well, everybody in the live chat.
Did you say you don't care? Okay.
Yeah, let's.
No, I'm just saying. I said okay, but no, I don't care about, again,
Right.
non-existent problems.
All right. Well, I would say to the two of you, I know.
Don't let the dinosaurs go extinct, guys.
I know we'd had some prior discussions, so I know the debate topic there, or the live chat, is kind of hinting at something that we were talking about potentially debating. So you can let us know in the live chat if you want to hear these fellas talk more on race. But we're going to continue on from here, and you let us know in the live chat if that's something you'd like to see. So, One-Eyed Heathen for $2 said, for Hake, who is they?
They, when I say they are promoting the transgender agenda and all that stuff,
I think so, yes.
I mean the commie capitalist establishment. We have very unchristian people, very anti-white, anti-man people in high places around the world, in America, and in the home. And so it's basically anybody who follows Satan. And actually, honestly, many of the Christians are falling into the fighting thing, and that's when it's evil fighting evil, evil wins. So what a shame.
All right. Well,
I'm sorry. I have to ask this question.
All right.
How can somebody be both a capitalist and an anti-capitalist in the same sense at the same time?
Oh, you're not aware that communists use capitalism as a stepping stone to communism?
That's not an answer to my question. That's a question. How can somebody be both a capitalist and an anti-capitalist in the same sense at the same time?
Commie capitalist, you mean? When I say commie capitalist?
I'll ask it one more time.
All right.
How can somebody be both a capitalist and an anti-capitalist in the same sense at the same time?
Confusion from the devil. Just like somebody can be a man and think he's a woman. Somebody who's led by Satan doesn't care what tool he uses, whether it's capitalism or communism or global homonism or nationalism or whatever. I
haven't heard global homo since 1983, and I wasn't even alive in 1983.
Nice.
Well, let us continue on. We got quite a few super chats coming in. We're welcome to keep taking them, but we're going to have to keep it short unless something has changed with your scheduling, Hake. We're going to try to keep it right on time for you. All right?
Appreciate that.
No problem at all. So, I got to scroll back up. Oh, there we go. Sam F, $5. First live chat. Enjoy y'all modern day debate. Well, we enjoy you being here, Sam F. For Hake, should male presenting biologically female folks follow you or your or your hypothetical daughter to the bathroom. So they're saying if you had a daughter and you had somebody who is male presenting, who is
Right.
biologically female, would you want them to follow you or your daughter into the bathroom?
Somebody was asking this in the chat. I would say me because, well, I don't have a daughter at this point, but I would say me because I'm an adult male who can hopefully take care of myself, protect myself. And so I would say me, I guess. But it's interesting. That's partly why I'm not for them presenting or trying to pass or not being passing, because it's best. I don't want to say that they should all go into like the mental asylum or something, but because I don't know if that's the real solution. But I truly encourage the closet. People think, oh, push them back into the closet. That's such a horrible thing to say. I think it's love. So, but yeah, given that they're here, I guess they have to follow me rather than my daughter.
That's right, guys. Get in that closet. Get down on your knees. You don't have to say please.
All right, let's we've had a fairly cordial discussion despite this being such
But it's
a
the
juicy
trans
discussion,
coming
so-
for your children. Just remember that.
All right.
I didn't say the trans were. I said well, Sleepy Joe's doing that too because he's for that stuff. He's promoting all of that degeneracy on the kids. So it's evil. I mean, your own mother does the most evil to you early on in your life. So
Yeah, just like those evil Jews and their blood libels that they do with our fucking good Christian boys. I presume you're against that, hey? How these Jews need our good Christian boys, our good white Christian boys to for their blood libels, for their rituals that they do, evil satanic rituals.
I don't know what blood libel is, but if they're doing that,
oh yeah, that evil thing that the evil Jews do that they use our Christian boys.
Let's
for,
try to
our good
keep
white Christian boys.
let's try to keep moving. Just
for
because,
the sake of the channel, I disavow your statements.
Well, let's keep moving just because if we want to have another discussion about social, political, or any of those discussions, we can have that brought up afterwards. But where we got time constraints today, we're going to try to keep things moving along and try to keep things amicable if we can. Everybody in the live chat there, I see you. I'm always watching. I'm weird like that. All right, so let's continue on. Jupiter Darman, member for 6 months. Thank you so much for your super chat and your membership. Biological male baby requires an X chromosome from the father in order to become male XY. Mary got pregnant without a father. Is Jesus our trans savior? That's for you, Hake.
No, he's not. I apologize. I am remiss. I was looking at the chat and distracted. But I gathered that there was some details about chromosomes, and then the Virgin Mary had Jesus, and does that make him transgender because he didn't have Joseph's chromosomes?
I think they're trying to present the transgender dilemma that comes from Clubhouse. I know the people who started it. I can present it in an easier to understand, actual dilemma. So the dilemma is that either Jesus identified as male prior to his incarnation, in which case physical form, i.e. biology, is not necessary for identity as a male, in which case transgender identities would be legitimized. Or it's the case that Jesus was not male prior to his incarnation into a physical body, in which case he would have transitioned from some agender or non-gender state into a gendered state, in which case gender transitions are legitimized. So either way you slice it, transgender people are legitimized, and that is the transgender Jesus dilemma. It's not saying that Jesus, well, I guess if you take the second one, it would suppose that Jesus is transgender in a sense.
That's cute.
But that's the dilemma, yes.
Yeah, that's cute.
And I also wanted to clarify for the chat because apparently
All right, 15
I
seconds.
can't say it like Bosch would say it because I'll get in trouble. But they didn't catch on to the obvious sarcasm I was using to draw a parallel between the rhetoric that James was using and the rhetoric that was used by people in, say, 1933 against a particular demographic of people rather than 2023. So because people in the chat couldn't catch on, I have to explain that. I thought that would have been obvious, but I was wrong.
That's funny.
Keep
what
it
are you,
spicy.
if you don't mind my asking, Leophilius?
What do you mean?
Like
what do you mean?
Race?
Like, are you asking me if I'm an atheist or a
stuff.
theist or I've got Irish in me. I've got German. I believe some Polish, some Trinidadian, some Native American. That's all as far as I know.
That's busy.
Yeah, a lot of people got a lot of genetic lines, so we'll continue on from there. It definitely sounds like you guys got more to talk about on social political things, so like I said, we'll definitely hit you guys up for more of that. But
hell yeah,
let's move on. Ozion talks. Thanks for being here, Ozion. Always good to see you here. $5. Good job, Leo. All right, Ozion's a fan of Leo. He's been on the channel.
Oh yeah, I know. Is that how it's actually said, Ozion?
I mean, I think I asked him if it's Ozion or Ozion, and he was like, "Eh." Say
okay, because I always thought it was Ozion, so I'm just gonna start saying Ozion because that sounds cooler. It sounds way cooler.
You have three.
Yeah, I know who he is.
He's
a good
pronunciations guy. Now. You have 3 Ozion or Ozion or Ozion, whatever you said. All right, let's continue on because we got limited time.
Jones.
Good job, Leo. So he's a fan of your commentary there, Leo. Hey, should transgender people be discriminated against in housing, jobs, and education for merely being trans?
It's up to the person who's hiring. The person who owns his own business should be able to be very discriminating in how he hires and all that stuff. And the people who own the property that they have, they should be allowed to discriminate based on anything.
To answer directly about being
to answer directly about being the transgender, let's say common decency. Forget about laws. Common decency says size them up to see if they're gonna be like trouble or if they're gonna be not so much of a problem. But it's hard to know. It's hard to find good tenants these days.
All right,
discrimination.
Okay, let's continue on. Unless you had like 15 seconds there, Leo.
Yeah, I was just going to say good old discrimination, the thing that caused the lynching of God knows how many black people, the enslavement of black people, the segregation of black people, the fucking genocide of 10 million Jewish people from the face of the planet. Gotta love it, right? That was sarcasm, by the way, chat. That was sarcasm at the end there. Just want to let you know.
Did you have any comments on that, James? Do you want to continue?
No, I mean, there's a right and wrong way to discriminate, of course. You don't. There was a lot of this lynching stuff is overblown because it was for alleged, rape, murder, theft, and theft was sometimes when
you find the nearest black person and say he did it because he's black, let's hang him. Yep,
that's right. I wouldn't be for. Of course,
the best way to do justice. Is to point at the nearest person who doesn't look like you and say they did it and hang them. Yep. Yeah, works great.
Yeah, hello. I'm not for false accusations like Black Lives Matter is doing to the whites nowadays. Of course, I'm for rule by law, but nowadays the courts are so corrupt. It's no wonder they form these crazy lynch mobs because the courts are corrupt. So what a shame.
All right. Well, let's continue on there. Where that was for you, Hake. Lord BB for $5. We're not going to read your super chat. Sorry, man. We're going to continue on. You got lots of good super chats there, so we will read at least one of them, but we're not reading anything insulting our speakers or any dog whistly stuff. So everybody in the live chat, just keep yourselves calm. All right. Brian Williams, member for 2 months. Thank you so much for $2. 2 months and $2. Thank you so much. Hake, do you have any close LGBTQ friends or family?
I had a neighbor who turned out that way. Turned out into that, yeah. What a mess.
Any family members? Well, I had a neighbor. I actually have a stepbrother who is gay, so I have like actual family members, not just this guy I know who lived next to me who turned out that way.
All right, well, let's continue.
It's not what he is. He isn't. Your stepbrother isn't gay. He's just into that.
All right,
yeah,
I think we've
he's gay.
I think we've answered that question there as far as related to Hake's experience. So, Bubblegum Gun, thank you for being here again for $5. Leo, on what basis of reality are identities affirmed on, since it's not biological or physical, it is merely symbolic of your struggle against reality?
Well, I didn't say that. I don't know where he's getting that from. So what are specifically gender identities or just human identities broadly? I'd need to know specifically, so I'll just break it down. Human identities broadly, it just depends on that particular identity. You've got religious identities, ethnic identities, national identities, gender identities, sexual orientation. Each one of those is going to find its roots, so to speak, probably in maybe tangentially related but different aspects of a person. I would say, however, that I think a lot of these are largely going to be informed by sociocultural norms of the time and a variety of those aspects that play into it. I think things like, gender identity or rather gender expression, religion, all those stuff are usually sociocultural, morality, that stuff.
Let's see here. Caught in the Middle, $10. Thanks for being here again, Caught in the Middle.
Hey.
Can't wait to host you again, buddy. That was a lot of fun last time you were on. Someone says, this is his comment, someone says, I feel like I'm in the army, yet they've never been in the army. Yet they believe they feel what it's like to be in the army. Do they really feel like they're in the army? ? No is Caught in the Middle's answer. So we're going to put that over to you, Leo, for 2 minutes.
Well, of course they don't. They haven't had the experience. They haven't had the experience of being in the military. But people who are transgender have the experience of being transgender because they're fucking transgender. So you don't live a certain way, or if you don't have certain lived experiences, you're not going to know about certain things. So I don't understand why this is hard. Like, serving in the military is the same as your gender identity now? Is that what the point is?
Maybe I'm not wrong, but I feel like
what is even the point?
I feel like this might be a point of agreement between you and James at this point, which might be good. How you feeling on that there, James?
I think that Caught in the Middle is not the one having a hard time with this, because a man doesn't know what it feels like to be a woman, but he may feel like he's a woman. That means that he's in his imagination and thoughts and feelings. And maybe he has some biological mess going on in his brain and his body too, of course, because the mind is very powerful to affect the body. The mind is very powerful to destroy or build the body. So he's making the point that these people who think that they're a woman they are in their imaginations.
All right. So maybe not a point of agreement. I was hopeful. I thought maybe we stumbled upon something there. So let's continue on. Lord BB, I'm just going to read the first half of your comment here.
I censor his stuff too sometimes.
Well, I'd read more of his comments for sure.
I like him. He's a great guy, but sometimes he's spicy or something like that. I don't know.
Well, I was going to say this guy is burritos, in the morning after a bad night. Anyways, no, I'm kidding. Lord BB, we appreciate all of your...
Apparently my analogies are so spicy, people can't handle them.
So, yeah, say hot sauce right there. Your ghost pepper analogies, I'm sorry. So, Lord BB...
I mean, it's high up on the Scoville,
I'm sorry, we do have to keep moving. Leo, why do you keep bringing up race? I was going to say, I'll just add context just because just because of the context of the conversation. So he's asking why you brought up race in a conversation about trans identities.
Oh, analogically, the same thing I was doing with Jewish people that the same people in the chat apparently couldn't catch on to, and how the kind of rhetoric that has been used against Jewish people and against Black people is being recycled once again by primarily conservatives and traditionalists again against trans people. That's the point of me bringing it up, because I'm drawing analogies against saying Black people are degenerate and their music is going to corrupt our children and they're going to rape our white daughters. Won't you think of the children? And people saying transgender people are legitimate and these they're coming for our children, and they're gonna rape our children, and won't you think of the children, and how they said the Jewish people they're coming for our Christian boys for their blood libels because they're evil, and won't you think of the children, because they have all said that about all of these people. It's an analogy. Holy shit, you'd think people could catch on to this.
I caught on to that, but it's interesting that you bring up the Nazi stuff when we all know that that communism have communists, which is what you're spouting, regardless of what your
well, I'm not a communist, so no,
I know,
but
you're a useful idiot for evil, let's call it.
No, I'm not.
Has no value, puts no value on lives. You're for the
yes, it does. I believe in improving them. You don't.
You're right. Improve your own life. You're for the
transgenders, no, improve the life of trans
which is
people.
Not good for them. You're for the
except that it is.
I don't know if the babies. It's marginally better for them in certain ways. Maybe
it drastically improves their quality of life.
Drastically, you say marginally.
Yes, as the studies have empirically demonstrated.
And communism has killed far more than the Nazis did. And again, like babies are dying like crazy, unborn babies. So you guys don't really care. And he's denying the attack on whites. So he's a blind person.
These are straw men.
Let's continue on, because we can definitely have that discussion maybe next month between you fellas. So, James, my understanding is you only have 4 more minutes.
Yeah, I gotta go at 1:45.
All right, we're going to finish up all your super chats then that were related to you without interruption here, okay? And then we'll wrap up Leo's and let you speak for the next couple minutes to close out all your thoughts, okay? Let me just comb through here. So I am specifically trying to grab ones that are for you. You
know, while you're looking, it's interesting that like the mama spirit, which is what Leo has, is far more destructive. It has messed up the black boys, raised them to be thugs, and is messing up the people who think that they're transgender. They have the mama spirit in them, and that's why they're mostly men turning into women rather than women turning into so-called men.
Are you trying to get our live chat to send us like 40 more super chats? I was gonna say you gotta go, my friend. I was gonna say
I know, but it's kind of an important point. It was a lull, so I wanted to bring up that point because this false love that he's portraying, which he may really feel it and all that stuff, is misguided and very destructive. This improving people's lives and helping them is hurting them. It's enabling evil.
All right. Well, let me. As you've said that, I have found the last super chat that is directed to both of you. So we'll kick it over to Leo for 30 seconds, and then we're gonna let James close out all of his thoughts, and he can choose to drop out of the line whenever he chooses. So thank you everybody for your super chats and everything like that for Hake here. He'll definitely be back, and thank you, James, for being here and having this discussion. So I'm going to bring up our last super chat for both of you, and then we got a few for Leo to close out the show. So for both, who's Rich Purnell for $4.99? By affirming trans identities, are we affirming Gnostics were correct in assuming the immaterial is far more sacred than the material? The material. There you go.
That's a question. Is that a question for me?
That is a question for both of you. By affirming trans identities, are we affirming Gnostics were correct in assuming the immaterial is far more sacred than the material?
I don't know. I don't know anything about the Gnostics.
I just gotta say.
I think what they're trying to say there is beyond the Gnostics point. I think they're saying, are we assuming that things that we think in our brain that aren't immediately physical are more sacred than the things that are physical? So I think that's what they're trying to say here.
I think it's important to remember that we are not our bodies. People identify with their bodies, and it's very destructive. And when something goes wrong, then they go crazy. So in a sense, yes, that's an important point, but I wouldn't say that that's a reason to affirm the false identities that we bring on ourselves, whether it's transgender or black or white or women or Jewish or whatever.
All right. Any closing remarks there, James?
I don't know what the Gnostics have to do with trans people. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh, okay. I could tell by kind of the look on your face. I didn't think you had too much input on that one. But James, do you have any closing remarks? I'll give you 2 minutes here to kind of close out what you feel and what you think about everything that transpired this evening.
I enjoyed talking with Leo Filius. Appreciate you, man. Thank you, Ryan, and shout out to the chat and Modern Day Debate, James Kuntz. Great channel. I don't know whether I should have tried my best to play along. It was with the defining masculinity thing. Some people were hung up on that, and I don't know. I don't know if it's important to that, but I really enjoyed talking with you, Leo, and hope to talk to you guys again sometime. I'm the host of The Hake Report, thehakereport.com, and I'm on Jesse Lee Peterson's network. Y'all need church with Jesse Lee Peterson, rebuildingtheman.com/church.
Y'all motherfuckers need Jesus.
And if you're feeling transgender, you don't have to listen to that feeling. And if you're feeling threatened by the transgenders or annoyed at them, you don't have to go with those feelings. It's not good. Feelings are very destructive. You know, there was a transgender who shot.
Is wrong.
There was a purported transgender who allegedly shot up a Christian school in Nashville, Tennessee. Oddly, we don't know the motive or haven't seen the manifesto. Purportedly, there was a manifesto, but anger causes mass shootings, and they're responding with anger, trying to go after the guns and affirm trans identities and all that stuff. Anger is not the solution. It's feeding the symptoms that you're suffering from. Thanks, guys.
All right.
I have just one. It's a really quick question for James. Like super quick. Do you love black people?
If I love anybody, I love black people. Yes.
Okay. Yes. See?
Amazing. See? All right. Sorry, I had
to. Not so bad, don't you know?
Shout out to the black people.
All right. Well, thank you so much, James, for being here. I don't want to keep you any longer. It's 3 minutes over your time, but we always have a great time when you're on. So hope y'all see you again. And
all right.
Yeah, have a great evening, my friend.
Thank you. I'm kind of a boomer. Thank you, man. What'd you say?
I just said take it easy.
Okay, take care. I'm kind of a boomer, so I'm gonna have to leave the screen. You can kick me off, or I'll kick myself off. Take care, guys.
All right. Bye. See you later, Mr. Boomer. All right. We'll kick you out. All right. And don't report James Hake. No, I don't want to report when I kick him out. Don't report. There we go. I didn't kick him out because he did anything there. All right. So we're just going to do a transition over to here while we continue on. Leo, thanks for staying overtime here while we continue up the super chats. I'm not sure what your time is like, but if you do have any super chats, please direct them towards Leo. We're going to try to stay away from super chats directed towards Hake, where he's no longer here to defend himself. So let's continue on. So, one-eyed heathen, Leo, what is the best way for those of us promoting human rights to communicate our ideas to honest conservatives?
There's a variety of ways that I think are largely going to be situational. One thing that I have been consistently attacked in the chat for, and I think that's probably because it does such a good job of painting the picture of what's happening right now, is drawing the analogies to when this has happened in the past and what it's led to and why it's important to stand up for it now, because why else why else? This is the Leo show now, by the way. Why else did we learn about the Holocaust? Why else did we learn about the civil rights movement? Why else did we learn about women's suffrage if not to ensure that we don't have to do this again? So I do think that drawing those analogies is a big thing that for anybody, regardless of whether they're conservative or not, will do a lot for making it explicit the severity of the problem that we are facing and how we need to actually stand up for this, like I am doing now, despite the rather intense amount of pushback. I have to be honest, I'm a little surprised by it, but yeah, it is what it is. You ain't gonna get me to back down, that's for sure. I don't back down in the face of bigotry.
All right. Well, let's continue on there, Leo. Thanks for holding down the fort there while I kicked the cat out because he was trying to stretch out his claws on one of my guitar amps, and I was just about to lose it on that fella. All right, so let's continue on. Maxwell Pfeffer, $2. I'm a gorilla, and gorillas are definitely real. I mean, we can continue on, but I mean, gorillas are real.
I was just going to say he's not a gorilla, but he is an ape. And yes, apes are real. I'm also an ape. Transgender people are also apes. They're they're not trans apes. They're transgender apes, but they're still apes. And we should treat, well, they're more specifically Homo sapiens, and Homo sapiens should be treated with respect and dignity and not genocided off the planet, despite what people say. All right. Despite how much people hate me drawing that analogy because they don't like the fact that it's very much true. Because this is how it starts. Just ask yourself, how did Hitler get to where he is? How did he get Germany to where he could just genocide 10 million people off the face of the planet? Just ask yourself that question. And then look at what's going on around you.
All right. Well, yeah, let's continue on. Just bear with me here. Trying to get our Zoom chat figured out here so we can get our proper display back. Lord BB, $42. 42 for $5 says, Leo, do you love white people? I think they're making.
Yes.
All right. Is that all you have to say?
Yes.
All right. Cool. All right. And not giving me very much time to figure out these screens. You keep up that attitude, I won't be able to get this sorted out.
Yes, white humans are humans and deserve to be treated like humans. But we should also acknowledge how different demographics have developed and evolved alongside different demographics and the power differentials that have existed between them, and how this may have harmed vast reserves of people throughout history, and how parts of society that was that way have lingered into the modern age.
All right. Thanks for helping me out. I think there we go. We've got something a little bit more proper going on now. I'm going to keep fixing it as we go. All right. So
I'm going to step off camera. I will still be here, though. You will hear me. You just won't see me.
All right. Well, as long as we don't hear a toilet flush, I think we'll be fine. Bubble gum.
Oh, yeah, you'll be fine.
Gun for $2. Leo, why are you scared to debate me on evolution?
Ooh. I'm not scared. It's just I don't study evolution. That's not something I would consider myself versed enough to debate on. And like smart people do, I don't debate things I'm not like very well educated in. That's a thing that you shouldn't do. So if you'd like to debate that subject, I'm sure there are a number of people that would be willing to debate you. What I don't understand is why Bubblegum Butt continues to run from me on a debate about physics, despite the fact that he wants to say a bunch of very wrong things about it. That's probably because that's a subject I actually study.
All right. Well, he's coming at you there in the live chat. So if you want to send an email to moderndaydebate@gmail.com, we would definitely entertain new voices on the channel. We're always looking for new people. And once again, best way to get this out there is to share it. Share it out on your Facebook group, your Instagram groups. Oh, my goodness. I'm speaking like a grandpa. I've been on the Facebooks. I'm getting old, everybody. Oh, that's not good. Anyways, so let's continue on. Marty Camajo for $2.
Camejo.
Leo
Marty
Rolls.
Camejo. I know who that is. I'm sorry.
Camejo, sorry. I might have not gotten that right. Thunderstorm $4.99. I came late. Isn't the main concern kids are being groomed or sex changes on kids? Or is this media hysteria? So, is it the case that this is just media hysteria? Are there a lot of kids getting sex changes? Is this a problem? Is there grooming going on? Thunderstorm just got in here and he wants to know. So, Leo, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's media hysteria, just like with the analogy I've consistently drawn that apparently makes me anti-Semitic because people can't see the analogy. For the same reason that, like, Jews doing blood laws on your good Christian boys was not a thing Jewish people were doing. That was not happening. It's an anti-Semitic trope. Just like pedo jacketing trans people is anti-trans bigotry. It's not happening. They're not coming for your fucking kids. They're trying to live their lives. If you want to know who's coming for your kids, if you want to know who's doing the rapes, what is it? Something like 90, 80, or 90 something odd percent of rapes that are reported in the United States are done by men. The majority of like people who are arrested for like CP and CSA and all this stuff are like pastors and preachers and youth pastors and Republican politicians and stuff like that. Think about who you would find on Epstein's Black Book. You'd probably find people like Donald Trump, Elon Musk. You'd probably find a lot of male members of royal families. You know who you're not going to find on that list? Fucking RuPaul. Guarantee fucking to you. Because these people aren't coming for your kids. It's men in positions of power, like it's always been.
All right. Let's continue on. And in defense of the gospel, $4.99. If we affirm people's false views of themselves, where is the line, and how would you ever be able to stop someone from identifying as anything?
So they're asking, what's the bar to identity?
I think so.
It sounds like, yeah, actual facets of human society that are legitimate and recognized, that we can trace a actual developed history of. That exist. How many people are identifying as trans in some way or another? How many people are actually legitimately, genuinely identifying as attack helicopters? Or as fucking panda bears? These are just arguments from absurdity. Nobody's doing this. That's why. That's where the bar is. There are humans who are trans. There are not humans who are fucking panda bears. Or attack helicopters.
All right. I think, let me just comb through here again and make sure that we got them all. I think that's the end of our super chats. Just hold on a second. Oh, okay. We had another one from Lord BB42. I will read it. It's kind of related to something that we touched on here. Leo, if a business wants to turn someone away for whatever reason, what's stopping a competitor from capitalizing on the opportunity? And then they add a little dig there and they say, stop crying. My. They're spicy out there.
Well,
tonight,
yeah,
Leo.
because when there was segregation against black people by businesses, there were so many of them that came out and said, we'll sell to black people. That's a thing that happened. Oh, yeah, totally. Like, this is just so bad. Like, do you know nothing about fucking history? Like, I don't understand this. Like, I genuinely do not understand how people can be this complete. Well, I do understand it. It's because nobody knows a fucking thing about history. That's why they're so ignorant of it.
All right. Well, you heard it here. We are going to hopefully be back to have another debate between these two. Maybe next month we'll get a little discussion going on about that. I think this has been pretty fruitful as far as what we've suggested for a topic. We've had a lot of fun. So thanks everybody for coming out tonight.
Can I give one more shout out?
Yeah.
To this channel and James.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, obviously you as a wonderful moderator who I think does a lot like James to help foster the discussion moving forward. But I do really want to give a big shout out to James for getting this discussion going between me and Hake, because Hake's somebody I've actually wanted to talk to for a while, and this is a topic I've actually wanted to talk to him about. So y'all really, really need to give James that love. You need to give him the likes, give him the subscriptions, support the channel, because he does a lot, not just for his community, but for the people that provide the content for the people that come on his channel and do the debates. He does. This is what I'm drinking. He does a lot, and I want people to support James and the things that he does. Yes, well, and I know that you did, and I really appreciate you for that as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, this was something that, we talked about after our last live stream. So I was like, I really wanted you to have that for yourself. Hake also was interested as well. So this was awesome as far as like a meeting of two people of opposite worldviews. I don't think we had a moment of true amicability as far as agreement. So, but both of our speakers, thank you so much to James Hake and Leo Phileas for coming out tonight and having this discussion. And of course, thank you to the most important person, me. No, I mean James. Sorry, I'm sorry. James, of course. He's awesome, and I've been so absolutely honored to be able to work with him directly. He's a super cool guy. So what you see on screen, that loving, charismatic guy, that's him. He's awesome. So, definitely shout out to James and all the hard work that he does, and, the fact that he's working hard in school right now to get this all done. I'm going to continue doing what I can to support him and carry him through this mission as far as having these discussions. So thank you, Leo, for being here. James, you're not here, but, thanks to you for coming out, and we will see you all next time. Thank you.
Subscribe. First.